Well, hello there, folks. It's Amy, and I was just shooting a video for my free motion troubleshooting guide class, and then I realized it was just a little bit past 7. So, time to set back up for this little free motion project. Especially if I can figure out where I put my thread that I was using. Oh, it's on the other machine. Well, that's a problem. Let's get that bobbin. So in my class, in the video I just shot, we were using, or I was using, purple thread and red thread. Red thread in the bobbin, purple on the top. So now I need to switch out my thread because we're going to resume quilting on a project that I did for my Amy Quilts Facebook page. Hey, I think there are people watching me. Thanks, honey. If you're watching, let me know where you're from and who's watching. I know some of you may be from the earlier video. So let me put this in. Don't have a lot of thread on that bobbin, so maybe one of those nights where when the thread runs out of bobbin thread, when the machine runs out of bobbin thread, we're done with sewing for the night. So I am not going to bring this thread around and use my little cutter that's on my Easy Set bobbin because that gives me a little short tail. And let me get this threaded. Always kind of hard to thread a machine with the camera in the way. Sorry for showing you everything on the back of my hand. Hey, Marcia, how are you? My neighbor to just a little bit northwards. So I'm in southern Virginia. Southern Central Virginia? I don't know. South Central, there it is. South Central. Thank you. Hubby's out in the hallway. I think he doesn't want to leave because he's afraid if he leaves me here, I will stay far too long tonight and sew and stitch. And he wants to make sure I come home at a reasonable hour. So this is a closed toe foot. So I do need to make sure that I get my threads to the bottom. If I'd been paying attention, I would have drawn them both to the bottom at the same time, but I didn't. Hi, Carol from Canada, Eastern Ontario, you know. Let's see. There we go. So in my Facebook Live video, we did this lovely big feather and then started echoing around it using an echo foot, which is on the other machine. I'm not going to reach across now for it. But I was telling the folks in that video that I really would rather free motion the echoes myself than to use the guide on the foot because I feel like I'm a little bit smoother when I do that. And smoother gives you nicer looking stitches than anything else. And hello from Iowa. Hello from Colorado. My parents are in Colorado. Now, let me get my quilting gloves. Now, I am using the hopping foot. Like I just said, I was demoing some tension issues for a video I was shooting for my free motion quilting troubleshooting guide class. That's something that I just launched this week. And it's still available for the pre-launch price because I decided I wanted to shoot a few more videos for it. And so that's what I was doing today. Let's give you a nice close look. And that class is all about the good, the bad, the ugly of free motion. It covers the basics if you're new to free motion, but it also goes into troubleshooting problems. And while there are plenty of videos out there that show beautiful quilting being done, they don't always show you when things go horribly wrong. And free motion is something where things can go horribly wrong. I mean, it's not like earth-shattering or anything, but it can go wrong because we're asking our machines to stitch in ways that they are not normally used. So we're moving our fabric all around, which means the thread is coming out of the back of the needle, and instead of being pulled neatly into a stitch, that thread's getting pulled all over, back and forth, and that can definitely create issues. Hello from Maryland. And also, anything that might be going slightly wrong with our machine, that we really aren't seeing an issue with when we're doing regular sewing, can really rear its ugly head when we're doing free motion. And that a lot of times is a burr on the needle case, not a needle case, bobbin case, burr on the bobbin case. Get your words right, Amy. A burr on the needle plate. It can be a slight timing issue. It can be a take-up lever that doesn't hold the thread very securely, and then the thread pops out of the take-up lever. That can make a real mess. And then, of course, we're learning about or using our feed dogs to neatly move the fabric through, and we're changing them out for our hands, and we're trying to make pretty pictures with them at the same time. So it's a real challenge. So somebody was just asking, what thread am I using? This is glide thread. I love glide thread. It is a polyester embroidery thread. They call it a trilobal polyester. It's what gives it that shine. And it's essentially one filament of polyester. Well, usually there's 2 to 3 strands, but it's one continuous strand, however many strands you have in your thread, which makes for a really, really uniform thread. So like cotton thread can be lovely, and it's what our quilt preservationists say should always be used in a quilt. Hello, Montana. But the cotton fibers are not as long. They're only a couple of inches long because they're grown that way. And, ooh, that was bad. So it can be fuzzy, it can be, less strong. And when you're learning to free motion quilt, you want a nice strong thread because your hands are learning to replace your feed dogs. And they're also trying to draw pretty pictures while you're doing it. So there's where I started, right there. Grab my scissors. I've lost my favorite embroidery scissors. They were here the other day. Now I just have my straight ones. I like my curved ones for cutting threads. And I think now that we've just kind of gone around and around, we're going to come in here. We're going to go just partially around, and then I'm going to start doing some fills. And as you start echoing around little pieces, they start filling in. You see here, we had distinct bumps around those feathers, and then they started getting flatter and shorter, and now we're down to two that almost just look like crooked lines because of how the echoing's filling in. And let's go ahead. Oops, I'm getting a low battery warning. Let's go ahead and have some fun with this then. I'm going to fill it in with swirls and plain old pebbles. Well, and I'm really glad that you liked my video on oiling and cleaning your machine. That is like the biggest thing that will help your machine run its best and run quietly. When I bought my first big Janome, there we go, I think we froze up for a little bit. When I bought my first big Janome, the owner, which was the man we ended up buying this dealership from, said that I got 5 years free service, so free cleanings. And I didn't bring my machine in for that until it was 3 years old. And I was absolutely shocked at how much quieter my machine ran after he serviced it. Absolutely shocked. I thought it was doing absolutely fine. I didn't think it needed anything. And I was like, well, I guess I should take it in, let him do that cleaning thing. And yeah, it made a big difference. Now, if I wasn't a passionate quilter, you know, maybe it wouldn't have made a huge difference in just 3 years' time, but we had a gal come in with her machine today. It was an old Singer slant machine, and those are pretty old. They're probably, 40, 50 years old. It had never been serviced as far as she knew. Now, she was young, so, you know, maybe her mother or grandmother before her had had it serviced, but she had had it for probably 20 years and never had it serviced. And so Eric was going to take care of that for her. But, you know, machines are a mechanical device, just like our car. And unlike our car, we don't have an oil reservoir, an oil pan, and we have loads of lint that can totally suck up any oil that's in the machine. Thank you for the compliment. So you may see some little bumps on my fabric. This is I think it's a Bella Solid from Moda, but I was using it in one of the videos from my free motion troubleshooting class, and we were stitching without thread. And so you could see kind of those little puncture marks in the fabric, because stitching without thread is a great way to practice free motion. And it keeps you feeling like you're wasting fabric or wasting thread or even batting. But I've got a batik, and this was actually the front that I stitched on in my videos. And you can see how well you can still see those needle holes. And so it helps you practice your stitch length. See, there's some that are really close together without wasting your fabric and thread. And now I can go back through and practice quilting this feather, because this is definitely a learned skill, and things can and will go wrong. Try not to get huge pebbles when I'm putting in these swirls. And remember, these are pebbles. These are not circles. I am not going to call them circles. Circles are very round. Pebbles can be many sizes. So we're going to think of them as pea gravel. But this little pea may be a little bit more oblong and small. And then this one may be a little bit bigger. Or maybe I need to put in a teeny tiny one to fill in a spot. And as long as you're nice and consistent, it doesn't matter. Now, the thing with pebbles is that you're always going to be going around them pretty much at least 1.5 times. So it's good practice for backtracking. That's where you're stitching over a previous line of stitches. And when I do my pebbles, I don't particularly care if I'm right on top of that stitching, just like my feathers. I'm not looking for perfection. This is not a show quilt. This is a teaching sample. And I can bet you money that if I was doing a show quilt, which is not really my thing, I just don't have enough time, I would not be also talking and doing a video at the same time. Guaranteed. What's that chef that used to be on? Guarantee. Yeah, the Cajun chef. So I got a little spot here we can just kind of fill in. Wonder how we're going on that bobbin. Let's take a look. We're getting low on the bobbin. Now, when you're getting low on your bobbin, that is a good time to quit before you completely run out, because sometimes things happen when your bobbin is really low. I'm going to keep going until it quits on us, because maybe it'll give me another thing to teach about. You'd be surprised, I do say things go wrong, but then when you're trying to make something go wrong so you can teach on it, it doesn't want to go wrong. So a lot of times some of my videos will turn into teaching lessons when things go wrong. In fact, I've got one on there here on the YouTube channel that is, I think it's called When a Good Bobbin Goes Bad. It's an older video, but it's a great one. Which, by the way, if you're liking seeing this, I try to do the lives on Friday at 7. That's 7 Eastern time. If you want to catch those, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit the notifications button. The notifications button will let you know when I've posted a new video. It will also let you know when I'm on here doing a live video. I'm just going to kind of travel over here. Let's do a nice big swirl. I like doing these big swirls with the little spiral in them. It just kind of gives it something a little extra. Quilting's the only time I'm a little extra. So if you're new to watching this, I am a Janome dealer. My shop is So Simple of Lynchburg here in Lynchburg, Virginia. We do have an online store at amyquilts.com. Many thanks to a friend of mine who said, your website names are always really long. Did you know that amyquilts.com is available? And I'm like, no. She's like, go get it. So I did. We also own So Simple of Lynchburg.com. That's a long URL. Let's take a look. Yeah, we're getting low. We're all right, though. What do you think? I love how it puffs up. Let's talk about my batting a little bit. This is an 80-20 batting. It is from Quilter's Dream. I love Quilter's Dream battings. They're really good quality. They are American made. In fact, their headquarters is in Virginia, which is really nice. But I like my batting to give my quilts a little bit of poof. Let's see, somebody just said something and I couldn't see it fast enough. Let's see. Thank you, Rabina. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. Yeah, Rosemary, Isacord and Glide are both really similar threads. I do like the Glide a little bit more. But yes, they're both trilobal polyester threads. So hello all y'all. So let's throw in another little spirally pebble, nice and big. Well, it's not too big, is it? Now, I don't feel like I have to fill in every little tiny spot with pebbles. So like here, I'm not going to go in here and fill that in. That's going to be super dense. It's already very much smaller than all my other pebbles. So I don't need to worry about filling those in. Well, thank you, Lisa. I did have one gal say that I helped her go to sleep with my videos. This was years ago. And I was horrified. I thought, oh, great, I'm boring. And she said, no, it's just your voice is soothing. So I guess that's a good thing. It is. Oh, yep, we are out of bobbin thread. So let's put that needle up, and I'm going to use my knee lift and lift that foot up. And I drag it about 6 inches away, and then I use my thread cutter. And that allows the thread to end up with a nice tail. So let's fix that real quick. So there's where my thread ran out. And I'm going to take my seam ripper. I could use a needle, and I do have a cheater needle that I'll be using here in a minute. So sometimes I'll just use that. But I love my new seam ripper. This is actually a seam ripper that was developed by Cindy Needham, who is an amazing quilter, and made by Famore. I think it's called Famore. It might be Famore. It has tweezers on the end. So I can use my tweezers if I want to grab a loop and pull. I like using my seam ripper part better. Just going to make sure you don't get it on that sharp cutting surface. And it is nice and sharp. A dull seam ripper is worthless. Make sure you're not using a dull seam ripper. All right, so I've come back to my last pebble right there. And I'm going to grab my needle. I call this a cheater needle. It's also known as an easy threading needle. You see that? It's got a split here at the eye, and you just pop your threads in. So this thread tail is really too short to knot. I could, I suppose, if I was completely done. I like to do an overhand knot. Let's see if I can do it. I think it's a little too short. If you've ever done any hand quilting, this is essentially a quilter's knot. Tie off. There. And pull that shorter end through. Did I get them both? Did I? No, I just got one. That's good enough. We're looking for progress, not perfection. So one little knot there, and I'm bringing it down to my quilt surface. I used to do it farther away from the surface, but closer to the quilt surface is better. Then I run my needle into the quilt sandwich, making sure not to come out the other side. So if this was an actual quilt, I'd run my hand underneath and make sure that I wasn't coming out the other side, and I'm not. And then you're going to take your threads. And I make a loop right here. This is really important, I think. I make a loop. I don't just pull it up here and pop it into the top. I pull it up and I have this little loop, and that loop allows me to get more of that thread into my quilt sandwich. See, it gives it some slack here, whereas if I just popped it straight into the needle and pulled it through, that friction might just pop it right out of the needle while it's still in the fabric. So pull it out. There's both sides. Pull that off to the side there so you're not right back in where it popped in the needle from. So these are easy thread needles. They're also known as cheater needles. Did you hear that little pop? So I pulled that thread and that knot popped in right here. We'll pull that thread a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and use my seam ripper and cut it off. And because it was pulled, those tails where I cut it just go right back in. And then when I take up stitching again, I'm going to be going back over that area, and it's going to secure it incredibly well. So that's what I've got for you, which is good because my phone just said I had low battery again. So let's bring this up and take a little peek. So there's our feather. If you want to see more about the quilting of the feather, you can go to Facebook and search for Amy Quilts. That's my other Facebook page, and that's no spaces between Amy and Quilts. And I did the echo and then the pebbles in here. So thanks for watching. I appreciate getting your attention. I hope you get to do some quilting this weekend. And let's see, next week is Thanksgiving weekend. Very good chance that I will not be doing this video. I hope if you're in the US and celebrating the Thanksgiving holiday, that you have a wonderful time, that it is meaningful to you, and, wherever you are. I think we all have things to be thankful for. And that's all she wrote tonight. Y'all, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.